Good morning and welcome to the Oasis Center for Spiritual Living, where we come together as one, providing spiritual tools for daily living. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Reverend Tucker. I'm the senior minister here at the Oasis. And I have this really excellent team that God has provided me to manage, my honor and privilege. Let me start out with Faith. Faith has been my assistant since the day she was born. She used to come and sit on the podium with me when I did announcements, and I'd just set her up there and she'd goo and gaw the whole time I was doing the announcements, and everybody was just in love with her. So they listened to the announcements better with Faith up there. Oh, goodness. And now she is almost 18 and my official assistant. So, yeah. And she's going to be our soloist today. So, thank you for being here, Faith. I appreciate you. And then there's my partner in crime since 1998. Boy, that's a long time. Doesn't that seem like forever ago?
24 years we're coming on. So
I know. Wow. Crazy. Anyway, he was my board president for many, many years. He's my first baby practitioner. He's our practitioner of the day today, which means he'll be praying us in and praying us out from the great state of Wisconsin. And he'll be available at the end for our 1 minute miracle. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But so thank you, Oz, for being here. I sure appreciate you. Okay, so also let me introduce the topic for today. We are in the process of doing our Back to Basics series. We do that every year, sometimes twice a year when we're offering classes. We do it in advance of the classes, so those of you who are new to our philosophy can get an idea of what we're going to cover in the class. And for those of you who are veterans, it's a great way for you to deepen into those, like the Tai Chi masters deepen into 7 moves their whole life. So this is our opportunity to do that. So the first week we did the thing itself. The second week we did the way it works. And today is what it does. Next week we'll be doing how to use it. It's the first 4 chapters of our textbook. But we are doing the Back to Basics series. Also, our music is provided by Reverend Elaine Silver, Reverend Fairy Elaine Silver. Gosh, she has just way too many prefixes for her name. And Karen Drucker. They have provided us with music that we can use every week. So we really appreciate them. And I'd like to say thank you to them. Also, say hi, hello, good morning if you're here. When we're in a facility, I can look out and see who's here. But with this software, I don't have that ability. So I appreciate it. Just check in and say hi, hello, good morning, however you want. There's a watch party button that you can click on, and you can enjoy the service with your friends, being able to talk back and forth because you can't bother anybody. So use that watch party button if you'd like to invite your friends to join you. I'd like to invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Allow the service to uplift and inspire you as we move into our centering song. Maybe.
The presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can feel the rush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. Surely the presence of God is in this place.
The presence of God in all things as all things. For when we conceptualize all that is, all being, all life, all time, all space, and go just beyond that, that is how we conceptualize God. It is greater than all things put together, for it is all potential things as well. And it is also each and every one of us, indwelling us, breathing us, beating our hearts, spinning the planet that we sit on, and illuminating millions and myriads of processes all around us, the perfect perfection of life in biology, in astronomy, and down to the subatomic level. All of this expressions of this one force. And today we learned how that works and how we use it. So it is a good thing as we look into and examine and get proof for ourselves of how things work in this life. And we have the inspiration of God indwelling us to illuminate the entire matter. And for that illumination and for this entire process of being, I give great thanks and I let it be so. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Oz. This next song is by Reverend Fairy Elaine Silver, and it is the nut of our philosophy. We are all one. That is the big deal about our religion. Our religion is that we believe that we are all one in God. So, and by the way, if God is not your word, feel free to replace that with universe or spirit or great spirit or Allah, whatever word speaks to you. But God is my word. So when I say God, please know that I'm using it because it's what I relate to. So anyway, if you know the words to this song, sing it loud and sing it proud, because of course you can't bother anybody.
We are all one. We are all one. We are all one in it. I hear it and know it, my being. Spirit is all I am seeing. For God is all there is. Grateful am I to be living, open to what I receive, honoring what I've been given, sharing now what I believe. I remember the oneness around me. I surrender to infinite light, knowing the love that's surrounding me is within me by day and night. And we are all one. We are all one. We are all one in it. Yes, we are all one. We are all one. We are all one in it.
Please say hi, hello, good morning, however you'd like to greet us. As I said before, when we're in a facility, I can look out and see who's here. With this software, we don't have that ability. And I do like to know who's here. It's kind of nice just to see who the audience is. If something happens that you like, whether it's something I say or something that Faith sings or the prayer that Oz does, we like that like button, that little thumbs up. You use that and let us know. And if you love something that you hear, there's always the hearts. We love to get love. And if I say something that really strikes you as powerful, let me know. Okay. I like to know if I'm on track. Just use the wow button and let me know that struck you. Okay. All right. So without further ado, we are going to have Faith singing The Art of Peace by Reverend Fairy Elaine Silver.
Our spiritual victory lies from rising within the mental forces of fear and limitation. Just as there is so-called waging war, there's also a waging peace. Marie Ann Williamson. It's in everyone, it's in all. Let fear be released. It's the art of peace. It's in everyone. It's in all. Let fear be released. It's the art of peace. It's the art of peace. Knowing co-creation is a victory to the light, ascending to transformation, where peace is shining bright. Knowing above illusion and seeing with spirit's eyes, replacing fear and confusion, and your heart will be energized. It's in everyone, it's in all. Let fear be released. It's the art of peace. It's the art of peace. Peaceful, calm existence has no thoughts on waging war. Keeping our spirits lifted, it's what we came here for. Rise above illusion and see with spirit's eyes. Replace fear and confusion, and your heart will be energized. It's in everyone. It's the art. Let fear be released. It's the art of peace. It's the art of peace. It's in everyone. It's in all. Let fear be released. It's the art of peace. It's an art of peace. It's in everyone. It's the art of peace. It's the art of peace.
Thank you,
Thank
Faith.
you.
Lovely. That was really good. Thanks. So you might wonder why we do so much Reverend Fairy Elaine Silver's music during our Back to Basics series. And that's because she wrote a lot of this music when she was in our classes. And then, of course, went on to become a minister. But she became a practitioner, and while she was in all of her training, she was writing these songs, and they're all about what our philosophy teaches. So we love to use her music in specifically during this time with the Back to Basics series, because it fits right in all of the places. So, all right. So the first week we talked about the thing itself, and the thing itself is the indwelling presence within each of us, God. Okay. Our bodies and our lives have this divine blueprint that is the truth about us. Quantum physics backs us up on this and says the universe is made of the exact same molecules. It's whether how fast they bump together that creates the world we live in. For instance, this desk that I'm sitting at, the molecules are bumping up against each other really, really fast and creating a more solid surface, as opposed to, say, air or water, where the molecules are just barely bumping. But what that is that they say there's an intelligence in the universe that knows how to create through these molecules, right? Okay, we say that's a divine intelligence. We say that that's what God is, not God up in the sky, with white beard and hair and white robes who's judging us. But instead, we believe in a divine intelligence, something that knows how to create itself through itself. Because we say that divine or that substance that the world is made up of, all those molecules, is God's stuff. When we talk about our teaching symbol, for example, this is the way God works. The unbroken unity of God is the circle. And although we can never divide God, it is divided into 3 parts for illustration here. The top being the conscious mind of God that thought us into creation. The subjective mind here in the middle, which what it did is it provides kind of like a Play-Doh of the universe. It's the stuff, the molecules. It's what quantum physics talks about when it says this is the stuff of the universe that everything is made of. That's that middle portion here. And the bottom portion is, of course, creation. It's us. It's the plants. It's the desk. It's me. It's the air. It's the water. It's everything in the universe. And if you notice the V, you notice that the conscious mind of God creates through an idea of, say, people, for example. It comes through to the middle portion where it is using the stuff of the universe to create us. And then at the bottom, we are created. And just like flowers in your garden, when it's our time, we return to the nothingness from which it came, so that God begins another creation. So that is the thing itself, God indwelling in us. And then the second week, we talked about the way it works through love and through law. The love of God is impersonal and impartial. It is impersonal because God, we have free choice, we have free will. And there's no person, we have, a lot of religions make God in the image and likeness of us human doings instead of the other way around. When you say we are created in the image and likeness of God, what we're saying is that we're made of that same stuff that God is made of. And so therefore, our entire being is the stuff of God, right? But we have free will, and there's no being that says, I prefer this person over that person, or you did that, so I don't like you anymore, or you don't deserve my love because you are not acting the way I would like you to act, right? And it's impersonal in that there's no 911 God. It's not like you can call up God and go, hey, I got a problem down here. Can you come down and fix it for me, please? And God goes, hey, hang on. I'm putting my running shoes on right now and I'll be down, right? No, that's not what we believe in. What we believe in is a divine intelligence that is impersonal, that says, if you want to go flag down cars to hit you, I'm going to let you, okay? For instance, my baby sister, God bless her, I used to watch her kids. And, well, I didn't watch all of them, but from time to time I would watch them. The middle child is the one that I watched the most. But, I'm not a kid person. I didn't have kids. I didn't raise kids. So I don't know a lot of things. I'm kind of a newbie at the whole kid thing. So they would come over and I'd be like, oh, don't do that. You might get hurt. Oh God, don't do that. You might get hurt. No, we can't be doing that. You might get hurt, And my baby sister sits me down, as she does a lot, and says to me, hey, they have to get hurt sometimes. You have to let them experience an adventure, because, you have to let them feel the stove and know that it's too hot, because otherwise when they're 40, they might put their entire hand down on the stove and burn themselves really, really bad. So you have to sometimes just let them put their finger on the stove so they understand. And when she said that, it made a lot of sense. I mean, it didn't take away my fear at all, but I started letting them adventure a little bit. And I would just, run in the house and like close my eyes. But she has so much wisdom, my little sister. God bless her. But that's the way God is. God is impersonal. It because of our free will, it allows us to learn the lessons that we need to learn. Not that God sets out lessons for us. We don't believe in that kind of God either. What we believe is that we set up our own lessons, and God allows us to have those lessons because it loves us so much. It wants us to see the lesson for ourselves instead of trying to limit us. Oh no, you can't do that. You might get hurt, right? Yeah, God's not a me. So when we say the way it works is through love and law, when we're talking about love, that's what we're talking about. And for me, that is a very important thing, because when I was raised Orthodox Jewish, I believed, because we were taught, that women were unholy because we were the ones who took that first bite of the apple and then convinced Adam to do the same. So because we go through painful childbirth and menstrual cramps and all of that, that's our punishment for all of that. But in the meantime, they consider us unholy. Well, as a little girl hearing that in Hebrew school, that was very tough for me to accept a God that preferred men over women, that preferred boys over girls. And so love is impersonal. God's love is impersonal is really important to me, because I know that God will love me no matter what I do or don't do, right? That I don't have to earn God's love. I don't have to deserve it. It's just there. It is always there. Okay. So that's the love portion of it. Then the law portion of it, I'm going to go through this as an individual. The law is impartial. It works for everyone, regardless of color, gender, orientation, any of it. If I go turn on a light switch, the light switch is going to turn on, and it doesn't matter who I am. And gravity will work for everyone everywhere, except, of course, up in outer space, where somehow gravity is suspended up there. But in reality, it is almost always, well, it is always except for outer space. Gravity works the same for every person. So when we look at our teaching symbol again, earlier what I was talking about was the way God uses this teaching, or uses this process, the creative process. Now let's talk about how individuals use the process. So again, we have that unbroken unity of God, the circle. We have the three supposed parts, even though you can't part out God. For illustration purposes, that's the only really way to explain it. But we have these ideas. We have these conscious ideas that we put into play through the conscious mind that is ours. And then the subjective mind, that information in the middle, is because we record, kind of like on a computer hard drive, we record everything that has ever happened to us and our reactions to it. And that's what is housed here in this middle portion. And then, of course, the bottom portion is what we have created, whether that's financial abundance, that's health, that's a relationship, whatever. It's what we have created. But don't worry. I know your mother probably told you that you made your bed, now lie in it, right? Have you ever heard that one? Well, here's what the V stands for in the individual. What we create, we uncreate, right? So instead of blaming ourselves for our creations and getting caught up in that, we now know that what we have created, we can uncreate. And so the way the law works, the way the spiritual law works within us, is that we have these ideas, or perhaps affirmations. Let's just talk about affirmations for a minute, because that really does affect all of this. Say, the law of attraction. Everybody, it's become a buzzword, and everybody teaches it, but they don't have a full understanding of what's involved. Yes, the affirmations are good. Yes, the affirmations are powerful. However, you do these affirmations in the conscious mind, but what happens when you get down to the middle portion, your subjective mind, is if you have had an experience that has taught you the opposite, and you have stored that here in your subjective mind, your subjective mind is going to bounce it back. It's going to say, say your affirmation is, I now make $100,000 of income every year or more, right? This middle portion says, well, who are you to deserve that? You don't deserve $100,000 a year. You can't create that. And it bounces right back and never goes into creation. Does that make sense? And then on the opposite end of that, we also have these automatic things that happen in the middle. So your subjective mind is creating without your knowledge a lot of the time, creating things that you may or may not want because of the beliefs that you have stored in this subjective mind. Now, the first time you drove a car, you had to think about, how do I put my foot? How do I look? Where do I, what mirror do I look in? When I turn the wheel, how far do I turn the wheel? All of that stuff. And by the time you're a veteran at driving a car, you don't think about those things. Now you're more concerned about what everybody else on the road is doing and where you're going, right? Well, that is how the auto portion of this subjective mind works. So we have stuff that's stored in there that's going to auto create situations that we don't like. Perhaps, for instance, in terms of relationships, we have something in there that says, I'm not worthy of feeling loved. And so what begins to happen is the subjective mind is now attracting in this physical realm, this bottom portion here is attracting to you those people that are showing you that you don't deserve to be loved, right? Ever been in that cycle where you keep attracting the same person? I had this teacher one time in one of my classes that used to say, I know you, it's a different face, but it's the same person, right? Because we keep attracting that same person based on what is in this middle section. But again, I say to you, anything that is created, the V says, can be uncreated. And so we don't want to get caught in that place where we say, oh God, look what I did. I created this. Oh my God, I'll never get out of this. No. What we want to say is instead, I created this so I can uncreate it. I have the power to uncreate the situation I'm in. And so what we want to understand is that God is the name that we give to universal spiritual law, just like gravity is one of the names we give to the physical law. So when we say that the way it works is through love and law, we know that love is impersonal and law is impartial. Okay, that's the way it works. So today I want to talk about what it does. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is transformation versus change, because I think that what it does is transform us. Now, the reason there's a difference between transform and change is that I could change things in my world. I could change myself, but I can always change back, right? When I have completed a transformation, there is no going back because it has become in my cellular structure, this is who I am. And so there's no going back. So it's not a change, it's a transformation that actually transforms me from one thing to another. For instance, have you ever known anybody who had, say, cancer, for example, and when they recovered, they were a different person altogether? Have you ever experienced that with someone? And the reason for that is because that cancer created the situation for a transformation of them. They will never go back to being the person that they were before the cancer. And that's a good thing because there are things that contribute to our stress that make cancer grow. And so what I've discovered with people with cancer is that after the fact, they're stronger. They know the power of God. They know the power of their own being. They know that they don't take any guff from anybody, right? Have you ever had that experience with someone? And so what's really true about what it does is it transforms us. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but for most of my life, I would separate myself. I would be a different person when I was with family than I was with friends, than I was in church, than I was in school. All of these different separations, these compartments that I lived my life as, they facilitated me in my growth as I was younger. But when I found this philosophy, what I realized was that I needed to be the same person, whether I was with family, friends, in church, or in school. Because the truth about me is that I am a human doing on this planet, but I'm a spiritual being. And so underneath that human doingness, which is all the compartments, there is one uniting force that is within me, that God presence that lives within me. And so what it does is it brings us to oneness. And remember at the beginning I said that what we believe is that we are all one. Okay. So the truth about it is that you and I and the air between us is one thing. It is God expressing itself as me, as you, as the planet. And there is no separation between you and I. There's no place where you leave off and I begin, because like a watermark on a page, God flows through us and we give form to that God substance. But it doesn't mean that God ends where I leave off, right? God flows through us all, and it is as much in each of us as it is in the space between us. God is simply all there is. It's really funny. I really enjoy teenagers. I should say it a different way, perhaps. They have a way of irritating adults with their insistence that we live what we teach. Right? You ever had that experience? Faith's over here shaking her head. She knows. She was raised in religious science, so she does know. Because we teach a lot of things, and a lot of times we adults forget, and we say things that really aren't in alignment with what we teach. So here we have this convention that our organization decided to have in Las Vegas. And it was at the Alexis Park facility, which is a conference center, really. And they did it because it didn't have a casino. They decided that they wanted us to have a more spiritual experience. And they felt like if there was a casino there, we would, I guess, be splitting our attention between spiritual and non-spiritual. But here we are, so in Vegas, and we're doing this convention. And Lynn and I pull up to the taxi stand, and I pay this guy $5 to take my bags basically 50 feet from the taxi to this little station that he has. And I guess to also put it in the back. All right. They go to a bellboy, bell desk, whatever, and go in storage. And then we go to our room and I check it out, and it's like, okay, there's no coffee in the room. Okay. You know, and we all we usually have some meeting place. Either it's the pool, like when we're in Mexico or Hawaii, it's the pool. We all go there and we wait for all of our colleagues to come and talk to us. And we all meet up and, you know, have sort of the pre-convention meeting, so to speak. Because one of the things one of my teachers, Dr. Kathleen Vogt, used to say is, in the School of Ministry, you meet your best friends that you will never see again. And it's true. You don't see them because we're just scattered all over the universe, over, you know, some different countries, you know, some in the United States, but maybe clear across the country. And the only time we get to see them is at conventions and the ministers' convocations, which is a convention of just ministers. But this is a main convention, right? And so we always gather. Well, in this place, you know, the best place to meet was in the bar, of course. So we were in the bar and we're waiting for everybody to come. And, you know, we have to get ready for dinner because our meetings start at like 7. And so we start, you know, we go over to the restaurant and we're like, okay, we need to make a reservation. And they're like, yeah, we have 12 tables. Now there's 400 to 600 of us anytime we have a convention. And they're only open from 5 to 7 with 12 tables. So all of us are scattering all over the place where they have casinos to find some dinner somewhere so we can get to our meeting by 7 o'clock. In the meantime, I go to my room so that I can change for dinner. And I realize my bags are not there. So I call the desk and I'm like, yeah, I need my bags delivered. And they said, well, we tried to deliver them, but you weren't there. And I said, you can't put them in the room? And he said, we work on tips, ma'am. I said, okay, well, I'm in my room now. So you can go ahead and bring them. They bring the bags. I get changed for dinner. We go off to all the different parts of Vegas to eat our dinner. And we get back and we do our meeting from 7 to 9. At 9 o'clock, I go to the front desk and I'm like, hey, is the steam room open? Because I'd love to take a steam. And they're like, no, ma'am, it closes at 9. And I'm like, well, is there any way that you can leave it open for us till like 10 o'clock? Because our meetings are over at 9. And they say, oh, yeah, sure. Bring somebody with a checkbook. We'd be happy to do that. Got it. okay. Vegas is all about money. Like everybody is out to get their tips. Everybody's out to get the money, And I know this. I love Vegas, but I'm consciously aware that that is the process in Vegas. And so I'm like, okay, I get it. Never mind. And I go to the bar because I want a cup of coffee. And I look at this pot and it looks like mud. And I said, sir, how old is this coffee? And he goes, ancient. And I said, well, can you do me a favor? Can you make me a pot of coffee? And he says, no, ma'am, I can't. We're about to close and I'm not going to make a full pot of coffee just for you. Wow. Okay. Gotcha. He goes, but I can offer you a drink. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not drinking. And he says, well, I can give you a Coke or a 7-Up or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Don't worry about it. So I went off in search of coffee and I bought some coffee to bring to my room. And I asked the front desk, can I buy a coffee maker and put it in the room? No, ma'am, we can't let you do that because the electrical system is a little outdated and we are afraid that the coffee makers might overload our systems if we allowed coffee makers in every room. Okay. All righty then. So I decided, okay, well, I'll take my coffee and I'll go to bed. And I get in the room and I start to unpack and I turn on the lights and they're so dim you can't see without a flashlight. So I have the flashlight on my phone going like this, trying to unpack my suitcase. And so then I tried to light the fireplace and of course it didn't work either. And I called down to the front desk and they said, oh yeah, we were having too much trouble with the fireplaces, so we've disabled all of them. I see. Okay. Now, mind you, we are paying $149 a night for these rooms. Now, that may not sound like a lot of money. I think this was in the early 2000s, which was a lot of money in Vegas for a room. But it may not seem like a lot of money here. But we were paying $149 a night for the privilege of what? Right? So the next morning, Lynn and I decide, okay, we're going to go ahead and check out. So we're standing in line to check out. And of course, the organizers of the event are like, well, if you check out, because we weren't the only ones. There was probably 200 people in line waiting to check out. And they're like, you realize that if you leave, we won't get the conference rooms for free. And I'm thinking to myself, you're not really getting them for free. Well, we're not getting them for free because we're paying the price of the room to get that, right? $149 a night. So we check out, we go to the Sahara, we pay $30 a night. We have an all-night coffee shop it's open 24 hours. We can get steak and eggs for $3.99. We have a coffee pot in our room. And with the difference between the $149 and the $30, we were able to rent a car and go back and forth just very comfortably. And so that's what we did. And a lot of people did. Some of them went to other places that were $149 a night, but it was elegant and customer service was all they were about. So anyway, the next day, after we checked into our hotel and everything, we go back and we're sitting in the lobby with my mentor minister, Dr. Kathleen Vogt, and I, and several other ministers who are not only colleagues, but friends. And we're sitting there and the teenagers are talking to us and we're all kind of laughing and goofing off and whatever. And some of the organizers were sitting in there with us and they said, with you checking out, blah, 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 we wanted to create this better spiritual experience because there was no casino. And God bless the teenagers. They were one of ours. One of the teenagers, Kristen, says, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Don't you teach that God is in everything, that everything is spiritual? So isn't God in the casinos? And isn't being in the casinos a spiritual experience as well? So Kathy and I are rolling on the floor laughing at this point. And, the ones who were the organizers were kind of upset because they didn't like being told, practice what you preach, right? But that's what teenagers are great at. We fill their head with all these ideas. And then if we get out of alignment with those things, they're the first ones to step up and say, hey, didn't you say blah, blah, blah? And it's a love-hate thing, really. I mean, I bless them. I know that that's what they're there for. But, it can be a little uncomfortable for us sometimes. But thank you, Faith, for all the times that you did that for me. Trust me. She was my assistant in my other business, and she's my assistant here. So she calls me into integrity anytime she sees anything that differs from that. But we divide the world into spiritual and not spiritual. And then we begin to have a not spiritual experience, right? Because we have divided the world into spiritual and non-spiritual, then all of a sudden we start to have these experiences that we consider less than spiritual. Let's put it that way. We don't judge, because truly what it does is it eliminates judgment. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not evil, it's not good, it's not, sinful, it's not a virtue. It just is. What is really true is that it just is. And the sooner we accept that and stop judging the world, the better our experience is. And so when we divide this world into spiritual and not spiritual, we are in judgment of the situation, and we begin to have the less spiritual experience. Remember when I said that, we have this conscious mind that we say, this is the experience, and the subjective mind bounces it back if we don't believe it, right? And so no matter how much we say, I'm having a spiritual experience, if in our subjective mind we're like, yeah, but the world is broken up into spiritual and not spiritual, and this is a not spiritual idea, or this is a not spiritual experience, the minute that happens, we begin to have that not spiritual experience. So the judgment is in that subjective mind, in that middle portion. And what I think this teaching does is to allow us to have a spiritual experience no matter what we're doing. We can choose that, but we have to be active about choosing it. And we have to work on the belief that is in that subjective mind that says this is not spiritual. So like a teenager, that subjective mind is jumping up and saying, you don't believe that. Ha ha, you don't believe that. And so we have to work with that as we're going along this process. But what I think this teaching does is to allow us to have that spiritual experience no matter what we're doing. It's not about casinos, and it's not about non-casinos. It's about having that spiritual experience, whether there's a casino or there's not a casino, right? And I will tell you, I was not having a spiritual experience at the Alexis Park. Okay. Dr. Ernest Holmes, our founder, says, every man stands in the shadow of a mighty mind, pure intelligence, and a divine givingness. Yet we allow ourselves to be distracted by a world that is filled with the appearance of limitation and disappointment. Truer words have never been said, because sometimes we give this appearance as evil, or we think of it as evil or harmful or sinful. In New Thought, we call it the dark side or shadow material. In Native American tradition, they call it the shadow world. Darkness is only the inability to see. It doesn't have a life force of its own. As I said in the first week when I was talking about the thing itself, God, I was talking about how God just is. There can't be a power for good and a power for evil that equal each other, that are the same powerfulness, right? Because they cancel each other out. And if the power for evil was the more powerful one, then the world would be in darkness as it was in the Dark Ages, right? Not that I'm saying there was a power for evil back then. I'm just saying that the whole world was kind of in the Dark Ages, was experiencing the darkness of life. But because we know that God is all powerful, we know that there is light in any situation, right? Cats see in the darkness. The only reason that we don't see in the dark is because our eyes don't adjust that way. The light was always there. It always has been there, and cats can see it. They can come in and they, without any flashlights or whatever technology we have developed, they walk into a room and they see in the dark, right? Which means that the light has always been there. Now, we as human doings don't have that ability. So we have to get scopes and flashlights and all these other things that allow us to see in the darkness. The light has always been there. God is always there, whether we see it or not, whether we feel it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not, it is always there. If God is all there is, that is part of our makeup. And that's why I believe the Garden of Eden story is very improbable, because on the one hand, we're saying that God is omnipresent, meaning it's everywhere. On the other hand, we're saying we can hide from God. How probable does that sound to you? You know, when they talk about Adam and Eve hiding from God, then it makes that story very improbable, because if you believe in a God that is omnipresent and always present, always available, always seeing, all knowing, and all seeing, you cannot hide from God, right? Because it's part of our very beingness. And we have to be willing to allow it to work through us instead of looking for that rescue 911 God. The other thing about that is we can never be alone. So some of us stay in relationships because we're afraid to be alone. And the truth is we could never be alone, because God is with us, in us, through us all the time. You can't get away from God. God is in you. And because of that, we can never be alone, truly alone. We can be lonely, but the loneliness comes from our inability to recognize that we are not alone. We don't need another person in our life, especially one that treats us badly or doesn't feed us intellectually, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We don't need another person in our life. What we need is to recognize that we are our own best company and that God is with us all the time. So we are never, ever alone. That's my thing on relationships. You know, and I've been in jobs where I was afraid to leave the job, and it's the same principle here. You know, God's good is always there. I've been in several of those jobs. I mean, the biggest one was when I worked for Scientific Software, and I was the assistant technical writer. And I knew for a good year and a half that I needed to leave that job. I would wake up in the morning and I would just be like, oh God, I just don't want to go to work today. And for those of you who know me, you know what a workaholic I am. If I like my job, man, I am 24/7 at that job, right? But when I don't like my job, oh my God, it's like pulling teeth to get me to work. And of course, I was always late, you know. And so it was such a blessing, because I was so afraid I wouldn't get another job that I wouldn't leave no matter what. And it was such a blessing when Scientific Software merged with Intercomp, because they were looking at people that held the identical positions. And if one had a degree and the other one didn't, they got rid of the person that didn't have a degree. Well, that was me. I had a degree, but not in that. And so I was like one class shy of a degree in computer sciences, I believe. And it was the intro to computers that I didn't want to take, because I had taken all the advanced classes because I was actually actively doing the job already. So I needed to have RPG as a language, and I needed to have JCL as a language, and I needed to have COBOL as a language so that I could interpret all the code and write the user manuals and the technical guides, right? I wasn't the only one. I had a boss who was the technical writer, but I was the assistant technical writer, which meant I did all the work, right? I'm not taking anything away from Adrienne. I mean, her stress level was incredible, but I'm just saying, you know. And so when they had someone on the other side that had a degree, of course, they laid me off. And it was so funny. It was really humorous, actually. I had been knowing that this was coming. As soon as they started laying people off, I said to Lynn, hey, be ready, because I could be laid off at any time, because I don't have a degree. And so the HR director calls me in, and, you know, he says, well, you know, we merged, and, you know, we have a duplicate person on the other end that does the same job you're doing, and she has a degree, and I'm so sorry, and we'll do anything we can to help you find another job. And he was just over apologizing and like really trying to make it okay for me. And I'm like soothing him. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. You're fine. No worries. You know, I've been expecting this. It's okay. I'll be fine. And so I called Lynn. He came over. We packed up all of my personal stuff out of my cubicle, and we headed out the door. And it was the opening day of the very first Star Wars movie. And so we went and got in line, and all of a sudden I realized that it was the first time I felt like I could breathe. I finally let down because I was so upset in this job, and I knew I needed to leave, but I wasn't willing to let go of that until I had this over here. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever been in that situation? And so I realized at that point that he did me a great favor by laying me off. And it happened again at, oh God, what was the name of that company? I was a gypsy waitress, Bobby McGee's. It happened again. They merged with another Bobby McGee's, and they had another gypsy, and this gypsy knew her job better than I did. I was not a good waitress. I will say that right here and right now. I am not a good waitress because the timing, I just can't seem to get the timing right. There's other things that interfere. And when you're being a character like we were at Bobby McGee's, I'm reading poems and I'm entertaining people, and we're running around doing happy birthday songs. The whole staff would go to people's tables for their birthday and do these things. I could not get it right. And so he's so apologetic. I'm so sorry. What can we do to help you find a job? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But it's because I realized that I wasn't good at the job and I should have left right away. When I realized that I wasn't going to be able to do this job, I should have left. But we're stubborn beings, or stubborn doings, I guess. So we never want to put ourselves in, we don't want to risk anything. Right. And so if we're jumping from off a cliff, if we're jumping the gap from one cliff to the other and we've got all this baggage, we don't let go of the baggage. And so if we jump, we wind up down to the bottom, right? If we just let go of our baggage and take the risk and jump across the void, we get to the other side. But we have fear about that, and so we don't do it. And we're in such resistance to everything that we create a negative experience for ourselves because we expect a negative experience. And when I was in the school ministry, I was president of the board of this church in Northglenn. Well, actually, I don't know where it was. It wasn't Northglenn. It was further than that. It was Brighton, I think. And, as board president, you don't get to vote. You break ties, that's all. And so everybody wanted to go do this board retreat up in the mountains in late October. And I didn't get to say anything because I was board president. So, there wasn't a tie on the vote. It was unanimous on their side. So, and I'm a city girl. I own it. I just don't do camping, and that's not my deal. So when Jeannie said, this was her cabin, she was a member of the board. When Jeannie said, so bring up a couple gallons of water because there's no running water in the cabin. You'll have to sluice the toilet. And by the way, there's only 2 beds. And since there's 7 of us, just bring your sleeping bag and we'll sleep on the floor. I was like, oh, no, I don't do that. I'm sorry. And so I had such resistance to it that I left late. And of course it was snowing, and I get up there and I see the balloons off the highway. So I know where to turn. I thought I knew where I was going because I kind of memorized the directions, whatever. And I get lost for 2 hours. I was lost. And I realized I was running out of gas. Here it is. It's pitch black. I can't see anything. The snow is coming down like crazy. Also making a barrier so I can't see. I'm running out of gas. I'm lost. I keep circling around the same properties. I stop at this one property that had its lights on, and I thought surely there's somebody home because the lights are on inside. And so I stopped there, and the one thing Jeannie had said to us is this is the time of year that the moose are in mating season, and the bears are getting food for hibernation. So you don't want to get out of your car till you get up to our cabin, And so I didn't think about that. I get out of the car and I go up to the door and I'm knocking on the door, and all of a sudden I hear the moose in the background braying, and I'm like, oh yeah, don't get out of the car. So I run back to my car. And I keep driving around, and I keep circling around to this one house where there's a golden retriever in the house. And I keep thinking, this dog is in the house. Somebody is going to have to come home sooner or later for this dog. Not thinking about, hey, it might be a self-feeding dog and they might have a door that the dog can let itself in and out, not thinking like that, just thinking somebody should be coming home. And about the 4th or 5th time I ended up in front of this house, I started to cry. And it is at that moment where we actually surrender our ego at that point, and we begin to cry, that the idea enters us to pray, right? I wasn't praying up till this point, right? I was going on ahead. I was going to get there. And so I began to pray. And the answer that I got was, go back out to the highway where you know where to go. Go back out to the highway and start over again. Well, I went back out, and the very first house I came to, I pulled in and I laid on the horn because, of course, I was afraid to get out of the car. And this guy comes running out, and I burst into tears. I'm sobbing. I can barely tell him what I need to do. And he finally says, well, I think I know where you want to go. I don't know, Jeannie, but I'm pretty sure I know where you're talking about. So he gets in his car and he helps me get up there. And of course, by this time, the evening was over. I get up there just in time to say, hey, I'm here. But I had rented a cabin in Aspen Park proper. And so I drove back down, and I get to the place, and the only thing they had left was a 20-person cabin. They charged me the same price as they would have for an individual cabin, but this place was huge. It had like 4 couches. It had a fireplace in the middle, had 4 bedrooms, 4 or 5 bedrooms, had like 2 beds in each bedroom. It was like this huge, huge cabin. And I sat in that living room and just sort of breathed for a moment. And I was listening to the moose and the bears. I could hear all the sounds around me, but I felt safe. And so I was able to relax into it. And what I realized was I had set myself up for that entire experience because I was in such resistance to the idea and was so sure this was going to be a negative experience that I had created that negative experience for myself, right? So I get up the next morning and I head up the mountain, and what I see is, oh my God, scary. This road that I had been on is big enough for 1 car only. And on one side, you have this big cliff going up, and on the other side, like a 60-foot drop. And here I was, in this snowstorm, which I could have slid off at any time, and realized how prominently God figured into this. God said that there's a saying, God protects drunks and fools. And I felt like a fool in that moment because God was absolutely keeping me from harm. My favorite affirmation is, wherever I go, God goes before me, preparing the way and keeping me safe from harm. That's what I focus on when it's icy on the streets, or when there's a hailstorm or anything like that, and I'm stuck out in it. I start saying, wherever I go, God goes before me, preparing the way and keeping me safe from harm. And I do know that when I was praying, that was my prayer. But like I said, I didn't pray until the end of it. So because I'm prayed up, apparently that just went into operation anyway for me. And I made it to there. And I had a great time at the rest of the retreat. It was really good. It was awesome. Thank God I didn't stay there. I'm just, like I said, not that kind of person. I don't sleep on the floor. And I really enjoy using the bathroom in Flushing. But anyway, but that's what we do, right? We create that negative experience because we see that negativity in it. Buddy, stop. We see that negativity in it. And we get into resistance and create that negative experience for ourselves. So what I want to talk about, because I believe that what it does is it provides us with a sense of peace. That's why I like that Art of Peace song, because as long as we are aware of God's presence in and through all of the situations, and that the truth of God is the reality of love, happiness, joy, life, beauty, in relationships, in financial situations, in our bodily health, as long as we recognize that, we can live a very peaceful, successful, happy life, joy-filled life, right? In the 1880s, there was a woman born, and I want to talk about her for a minute, because during the 1880s, women weren't allowed to have an education. They weren't allowed to own property. They were, in fact, treated like property. And the best that a woman could expect or hope for was to find a husband who would be good to them and had property so that they would be safe and secure, right? That was the best they could hope for in that time. Well, there was a baby born in the 1880s, and a baby girl. And when she was young, she suffered from some illness that left her blind and deaf. You know who I'm talking about? The story of Helen Keller. Helen Keller, she had her moment there for a while where she gave in to her hopelessness. She sunk into a depression. And this woman named Annie came into her life and taught her. And as a result, Annie lifted her up from that depression and showed her what was possible instead of what was impossible in her life. She went on to get an education. She got several degrees. She went on to do speaking engagements. She went on to become very successful. And remember, in the 1880s, that was pretty much unheard of. But she didn't allow the things that were limitations or perceived limitations to keep her from being able to do what she needed to do. And because of that, the world changed. She changed the world. And so I want to address that for a minute, because when we're focused on our limitations, when we're focused on the things that we cannot do, when we're focused on the things that make us unhappy in life, we create more of those. Remember the teaching symbol? We attract more to us. The law of attraction really is, we attract more to us based on what we think about. Not individual thoughts, but the preponderance of our thought. If the preponderance of our thought is about our limitations and our inability to get there, if that's what we're focused on, the preponderance of our thoughts, we're going to attract more of those kinds of situations to us. If we're focused on how bad our relationship is, we're going to attract more bad into the relationship. If we are focused on how much money we don't have, we're going to attract no more money, or less money than we deserve, or less money than we should have. If we're focused on illness or dis-ease, then it's going to be very hard for us to be healthy, right? But when instead we are focused on the possibilities, remember, anything is possible in God. If we're focused on the possibilities instead, we create, or we attract to ourselves wonderful, wonderful things in our lives. I'm going to need to bug out here. Oh, maybe not. Okay. Buddy has decided to be bad at this moment. Lynn, spray him really good with a water bottle. Buddy, you stay on that perch. Do not get off. Sorry. I hate to interrupt with that kind of stuff, but Buddy has his own mind. Another one is the notorious RGB, Ruth Bader, RBG. I don't know why I have it that way. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg came up in the 50s, I believe it was, when women really didn't have a lot of power and were, oh my gosh, I've gone over quite a bit. In the world, she just created a world where women had opportunity where there were none before. And so what it does for us, I believe, is the gift, the life of God. If we use that gift to give to the world, we benefit us. Leave a legacy behind, because that is really what we're here for, leaving a legacy behind. What it does, the thing itself, the way it works, and what it does is provide a life that is good and beautiful and happy and prosperous and joyful. Will you this week participate with me in focusing your attention on that God within us, that God, that most powerful God that is within us, that is the truth about us, and that with whatever situation we're experiencing, God is the truth behind it. There is always a possibility in God. With God, there is all possibility. Will you help me this week and focus your attention on that? Let's have a prayer. So in this moment, I turn my attention to the infinite power, the infinite presence of God, to that place within us that knows beyond human understanding just how present, how beautiful, how powerful God is. As I turn my attention to that, I know that that is where I come from. It is who and what I am, my very essence, my very being, my very life, who and what I am. And every thought, every action, every deed is guided and led by that wisdom of the ages that is God flowing through me. I know that same truth for this powerful team that God has lent me, for Faith and for Tina and for Oz and for Lynn. For we are one in that infinite power and presence of God. We are the human doings who do all the human stuff that needs to be done so that God's message comes through to the world, that it spreads and inspires and enlightens the world. We are all one. And it is the same truth for everyone who is watching this, whether that's in real time or later on. For I do know that there is no place where one leaves off and the other begins. We are all one. Mitakuye Oyasin. And so I know this week is blessed here and now with awareness of God's presence, God's intelligence, God's life. I know that this week uplifts and inspires each of us as we focus our attention on that one infinite power, that one infinite presence of God, that life within us. And so I know this truth for every name that is in the ministry of prayer today, because I do know that whatever situation they are experiencing, God is the truth that underlies it. So I pull back the veil. I reveal that truth here and now. I claim it as good and very good in their name, as I know that this is done. My heart fills with gratitude and love to let this be so. And so it is. Amen. Alrighty. I'm sorry I ran over. I apologize. I don't really like to run over, but I got lost in my sermon and I look up and oh my gosh, it's 11:33 already. Now is our opportunity to receive your gifts, tithes, and offerings, and your opportunity to express your gratitude for that which you have already received in the physical realm and that which you may have manifested in the mind of God and may not have yet experienced it in the physical realm. I'd like you to invite you to click on or to go to www.oasiscsl.org, our website. Faith has it on the screen as well as in the comments. And you're going to go to about 2/3 down the page and say the offering affirmation with us. And underneath that is the Contribute Now button. So whether you're watching this in real time or later on, go to oasiscsl.org, go down the page a little, and say this offering affirmation with me right now. This perfect gift is spirit in form, circulating and blessing all it touches. Freely I give and joyously I receive. And so it is. Click on the Contribute Now button and please contribute to getting this message out to the world. It does take money to be able to do that with advertising and everything else. So thank you for your contributions. We have this wonderful ministry of prayer. Our licensed practitioners from coast to coast are available for spiritual guidance for a fee. You set that up with them through either Facebook, message them, or on our website, you find out how to contact them. They'll set it up for Cash App or Venmo or PayPal or however they want to set up payment, and then they'll reach out to you by video chat. In the meantime, we have Oz as our 1 minute miracle person for the day. He's going to be available for that right after the service. Contact him through video chat. Excuse me. And whatever your situation is, you can explain it to him. And he will stop, drop, and pray with you right then and there. Excuse me. This cough is just hanging on. Yes, I've been tested, and yes, I'm negative. Okay. If you would like prayer for something this week, put it in the comments section. If you don't want it to be public, you can direct message one of us. Faith will make sure that it is on the private group page for our God Squad, as we call our prayer partners is God Squad. So just put whatever the issue is in the comments or direct message us. If you would like to be part of our God Squad team, you don't have to be a licensed practitioner. You do have to be willing to do affirmative prayer, what we call our spiritual mind treatment, and do that every day for a week and keep those requests confidential. So if you would like to participate in our God Squad, say yes in the comments section, and Faith will add you to that private group Facebook page for the God Squad. All right. And then if you would like to be part of our online community, you can type more and Faith will make you part of our public facing group page that gets all the information before we publicly announce it anywhere else. For instance, we have a Foundations of the Science of Mind class that's going to be starting in September, Thursdays, 7 to 10 Mountain Time. We're allowing people to pay as you go for the first 5 classes. So you're paying $30 a class. At the end of those 5 classes, if you want to continue on, we're asking that you pay the balance, which is $150. The whole class is $300. It's 10 weeks. Excuse me, my goodness. I did fine through most of that sermon, and then anyway, so we're going to be posting that in the Facebook public page, and we're going to be doing it for the general public as well. All right, bracelets. I don't have mine on. Bracelets and mala beads from Brooks and Bailey. It benefits the Rocky Mountain Lab Rescue. You can get a hold of her with brooksandbailey0307@gmail.com. They're excellent. Everything there is just excellent. Faith, would you like to talk about yours real quick?
And then definitely check out the Mystic Brew. Right now our Etsy store is down, so ignore our Etsy store. However, you still can go to our website, www.themysticbrew.com, and definitely follow all of our social media, Instagram and Facebook, at the Mystic Brew 303. Not to give it away, but we're doing a giveaway here really soon. So you want to make sure that you're following so that you have a chance to win that giveaway. We have bath salts as well as intention jars ranging from $5 to $30, and prices did change recently, so definitely go take a look.
So are these $15?
I want to say those are now $10.
This
I
size?
think
If
for
small went up, it'd be $20.
No, prices went
down.
For back to school, prices went down.
I see. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this is the intention jar. These were 15. I guess they're 10 now. It's really wonderful. She made that one for me for prosperity. So anytime I'm working with my abundance, I use that intention jar to just as a prop for myself. Yeah. All right. And also along those same lines, we have Angel Renee. The information is in the comments. It's kind of an adjunct to what Faith is doing. These are candles that are intention candles, and she has these little intention tea bags that you stick in the bath and brew yourself. But you focus on your intention while you're using those. All right. Go to Reverend Fairy Lane Silver's website. She does travel quite a bit, singing everywhere, and her website doesn't allow her to make changes to it. So you'll have to contact her by email so that she can receive payment from you. You can find out how to pay her and whatever. But any of the music that we've done during this Back to Basics series, she has wonderful CDs. So take advantage of that and definitely buy it from her. Then Karen Drucker also has a website. Hers works. You can buy things right from her website. She sells by the song, by the CD, and of course she has songbooks, and some of them have American Sign Language. We like to support those that support us, so please go to these artists and give them some love, okay? All right. Check out our website, www.oasiscsl.org, to get current sermons for the last year and a half, past sermons from years prior. The videos are the last year and a half. The sound files are from years past. Also, you can get us on YouTube or SoundCloud with S. Tucker. Okay, awesome. All right. This last video is a wonderful meme. Get yourself to where you sing along with it, and then it gets stuck in your head so that you sing it all the time. It is a great way to have a blessing in your life because you are acknowledging how blessed you really are.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
And as one being in God, we create a perfect world that unfolds around us with ease, simplicity, and grace. For being part of that process, I give great thanks and I let it be so, and so it is.
And so it is.
And
Thank you
so
for
it
being
is.
here. I know there's 1,000 things you could be doing on a Sunday morning. We're blessed to have you with us. Join us every Sunday at 10:30 a.m., including next week for the finish up to our Back to Basics program. We love you. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Get vaccinated. See you next week. Bye.